are in Pershing Square in Los Angeles, and we're going to be talking about plazas and squares around the United States. Which ones are good ones, which aren't so good, and how you make a great one. And I don't think this is a great one, do you?
I think it's got some good points, but it also needs a lot of work.
Well, work in what way?
One of the things that I notice most is that it doesn't seem to connect with the neighbourhood. This is a CBD, a downtown area, lots of offices, some very austere buildings. This feels almost like a bit of a desert in the middle.
Well, it is supposed to be a bit of a desert theme. It's Mexico, the Mexican angle, but you've got modern American buildings around, so that theme doesn't seem to work here.
No, and I understand the cultural significance that's trying to be portrayed here, but perhaps it's the vegetation which works, and there's some beautiful garden areas which are really using that climate that's here. But in terms of attracting people and making you want to sit down and participate in the space, it doesn't seem to do that for me.
Well, as you come into the space, the first thing you hit is this very hardscape. It's kind of sunken. You break your shoe on it or an ankle on it, just coming into it. It's so dry in appearance, and the sun beats down on that space in ways that make it very uncomfortable, I think.
Yeah, this is a hot city.
It is a hot city.
And so having a little space and even finding a bit of shade to sit down like we're doing now it took a little while. So if I'm working all day and I come out and have 40 minutes for lunch, is this the place that I would want to spend and cool off? Not really.
Not really. And the center of it lacks any cool space. There aren't any trees. It's kind of a very barren environment, but there is some grass. But the grass looks like the kind of grass that they don't want you to walk on.
I think there was even a sign that said not to.
Well, there's signs that say not to do everything here. What can you do here?
Yeah, I said it. I think it says you can't eat on the grass, and so I don't know if that's.
And you can't take your pets on the grass.
You can't take your pets on the grass.
You can't smoke. You can't drink. What can you do?
It is a bit tricky. It is.
So what do you think can be done with this?
One of the things that struck me is you still could have that Mexican feel, but to have some kind of awnings or umbrella, even if it's a temporary arrangement, that can really make this a bit more inviting.
Well, you know what they have in Italy, at least in Plazas, they have these vines coming up over trellises.
Nice.
What if you had trellises around this park and then created round areas you could walk in with grass in the middle? That would be interesting.
Yeah, because the Mexican theme and my images of Mexico is that there's such a strong people culture where you're mixing here and mixing there. So opportunities which are able to do that, whether there's pathways and smaller seating and the cover with the vegetation, that would actually be far more, I think, inviting, but keeping the theme that they really wanted to have here.
And if you had a performance here, where would you have it?
Yeah, there's some open spaces.
But you're not sure what you can use them for.
No, and the seating around it was, again, quite harsh. This is another harsh seat, and they're using the concrete and the metal, which may have safety reasons, I'm not quite sure.
Well, obviously you can't sleep on this because you couldn't lay out on it.
Yeah.
So this kind of, what would you call it? Preventing things is what this park is about, rather than encouraging things.
It does seem to me. Yeah. And the downtown has had a traditional area of attracting homeless and antisocial behaviour. So I understand why they've been trying to do that. And I think we've got some homeless friends not far from us now. But it's not supposed to be just about
foreboding.
Yeah.
Well, let's go look at something that's a little bit better.
Okay, that sounds good. Let's go.
What are the lessons we got from this promenade?
I think one of the big things is just how the shops meet the promenade in a way that they're inviting and bring people in. I even like those little booths that have things for sale.
Yeah, I think that's important. But the width of the whole promenade is really important. So you've got like 4 activities. You got the middle of it that supports movement. You got the sides. You have vendors, and then you have things that move out to the vendor, and then you have the startling and interesting facades.
Yep, they add value, and the street furniture is still quite quality and conforming to a particular style that actually fits with the culture and the type of place they want to make.
Not only that, the furniture is exactly the same distance apart. So if you ride into your bike, you know exactly where the bike rack is. If you're tired, you know you only got 10 meters to walk. There's a place to sit down.
Yeah.
And all these things are positioned so you can sit and talk and interact. Rather than just willy-nilly all over the place.
And the music and the entertainment adds to that, doesn't it?
Well, the music and entertainment, you notice there are only 2 entertainments on every active entertainment. Then there's passive entertainment on the sides or on the block, but not interfering with the active entertainment.
And that starts to create little sections, but it still flows from one place to the next. And you do want to walk the whole length of the promenade. You don't feel like, okay, I'm going to stop now.
That's right. The shops are curated so that they're different kinds at different places. So if you're looking for something, like I was looking for ice cream, I had to go a block or so to get to it, but there wasn't any other intervening ice cream place.
Yeah.
So they've curated the shops and mixed them around the Apple Store and things like this with the kinds of things. If someone goes to the Apple Store, they're looking for that kind of activity, and they've leased them. How you achieve that if you don't own every store is hard.
So you need an organization that manages the place.
That's right. But not only you need an organization that manages the place, you need an organization that interacts with the retailers themselves and gets them to see that by this collective behavior, they're going to get more out of it than acting individually.
Yeah, true. Bringing it all together was also those gentlemen wearing the blue shirts, the ambassadors.
The ambassadors, yeah.
They helped people. They kept a sense of security because they weren't security guards, but you knew someone was watching.
Yeah. Well, in some cases, and we saw him interrupt some guy that was on skates.
Yeah.
No, sir, out of that. So they stop trouble before it starts.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's a good idea.
And we need to think about, if we're going to do this kind of thing, close streets and so on, what is it for? It's not just the closing the street. It is organizing the space, all right, with the same kind of quality, detailed stuff. It is creating activation on that street. It is also ensuring that the facades and things like that are done in a way in this clean and active space.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. That's a good. Go. Dallas was an interesting park. It was a public space provided with private dollars.
It was a great park. I like the idea that with the million people that come and visit as what they call guests in a year, there was definitely a sense of place and different things that you can do there, whether it was passive or active.
And the park is managed by a private group. So they curate that space, make sure the right events are there at the right time, during the day. Again, like Santa Monica, you have the right kind of event in the right space at the right time of day that makes it all work.
Because it's not just about the space, is it? It's about what you do in them, and there's a very strong active programming that goes on to utilise that space. But you don't have to participate. You can just enjoy the surrounds.
Yeah, and one space is a library, an open-air library. So, and I saw several older gentlemen there reading their newspapers and reading books there. So you can just sit and relax during the day, coming down from your office towers and things that surround the space.
It is good. And they were saying that it was connecting the spaces that surround the area. There was the downtown and the uptown, but this park sits into the middle.
On a bridge over what would be a freeway or a highway. So that would be dead space if they hadn't done it.
And it's very good in a sense of it's a space that you feel that you're connected with the surrounds without feeling like the surrounds are imposing on you when you're using that space.
And the other thing I like about it is it's divided into rooms.
Yeah.
So you start out with a children's room at one end and a green space, and you move along the library and then restaurants, and each of these has a defined space.
Yeah.
So that when you're in one of those quarters, you know you're there. So there's a place for little kids, a place for big kids, and all of them are participatory spaces. You participate with the out of doors, as it were.
It was good. I liked the stage area because even when we were there, it wasn't being used. It didn't look empty.
There were people on it, sitting on it, taking advantage of it as shade. So that was marvelous. And the restaurants surrounding the space are on one side and food trucks on the other. That's a unique combination.
So you can get your ice cream or you can sit down and enjoy a glass of wine if you're going to go out to a restaurant or the theatre afterwards.
And they're complimentary eateries. So if you just got the kids, you want to have ice cream, popcorn, a hot dog or something, you go to the trucks. But if you want to have a fine meal, you go to one of the restaurants that provides high-end, very fine meals.
Yeah, it was good. I liked the comment because some of the areas surrounding there was not necessarily a nice area. They're judging some of their performance or how well they're doing because if the mums and the bubs go, then it's a safe place to go and they're getting them to come. So
Yeah,
that's
70% of the patrons on the park are women.
Yeah,
So that means it's a very safe
it's
place.
a positive sign, isn't it?
And you didn't see anyone in uniform there, in a police uniform. You saw people as uniformed ushers and guides,
Yeah.
but no police.
None at all, none at all. And it was funded largely from private donations. I think it was something like $55 million that has actually been put into that park. And they operate, I think it's around $2 million a year that keeps coming in from private funding to keep it going.
And almost 200 activities. It's incredible
Yeah.
that they have
Yeah.
during the course of the year. And it's all free.
It's a good sign, and it's
a great
working
sign.
well.
And it's working very, very well.
Yeah.
Looks like we've got a parade coming.
It sounds like a parade here.
Okay, enough for
For Dallas?
Dallas. Well, listen to the music. We're in Millennium Park. The Millennium Music.
A lot's happening, isn't it?
Always a lot happening in this park.
Yeah,
We're
on a
in
Saturday.
Chicago. Wow. Chi-town.
Yeah, it's a happening place. It really is. And the park is definitely happening.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here, and the music is just additional background for this place because there are things happening here every day, almost every minute. There's something going on here. What are the key features from your point of view of this park?
I like this park in the sense of there's, again, we're sitting at a cafe. It's not intrusive, but we're also by the fact that there's some lovely surrounds in the sense of the garden. But right behind us, I know the noise is going on. You know, you don't have to participate in it. You can sit quietly or you can have the activity that you need. And the bean is obviously a big feature in Millennium Park.
Incredible. I mean, that is an iconic feature.
It is. And I like the fact that it's art, but it's so interactive. Did you see all the different people taking
Yeah,
photos?
and people getting married there
Yeah.
at the being, or getting their photos taken for their marriage.
They were.
So it's a point of memory. And I suppose you say, I'll meet you at the bean.
Reach at the bean.
And that's a very good thing. Now, this park definitely has rooms. You have an entertainment room, big space for entertainment,
The big concert area?
a concert area.
Yes.
This morning they're using it for yoga.
Yes.
I went.
Good.
But it's an area where you can throw a ball, kick a ball, so on, not interfere with anyone else.
Yep.
Then you come to the garden spaces. We're in one.
Yep.
And there's several all positioned around. Some of them are quiet, some of them are active, a lot of people moving in them and the like, going to see things, being in contact with people. And the flowers change with every season.
It is something that you notice, that it means it's fresh and it means it's working well in the sense of it's actually part of the seasons that change, so your activity might change and the people might change. So it does start to bring that sense of freshness to it.
And it seems to be a real attractor. People come from all over to this park, from all over the world. So this is not just a park, it's like Central Park. It's a central feature of the city.
And it's fun. I think the theme is around Universal Park, which means that that's why people come, because it is this universal symbol for everybody.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's so delicate. You know, you got millions of people, but if we walk around it and so on, as you see from our film, it is a very delicate place.
Delicate in the sense that you can do different things, or delicate in the
Delicate in the sense that it's so well laid out. It's so manicured.
Yes.
Yet you've got millions of people. A lot of places that hold a lot of people are kind of rough on the edges. So, and they're things that hold the people in or direct them. This isn't like that. It's kind of flows.
It's definitely flowing from people, because I think it has multiple entrances.
Yes.
So you don't have to just all funnel in with a big gate. It is something that just sort of oozes out almost into the city.
Yeah, and this is another one that's built over several streets. You can go under it to park and the like. So they're using the topography to help create the space, and it has different levels.
Nice.
So after a little yoga, I could run up and down the stairs, and there were flat areas to run and walk, and places like the one we're in where you can have a cup of coffee or drinks and so on. Quiet, contemplative places as well as very active places.
Yeah, it is good. And I think some of those
and
places...
we can hear the active places going on right now.
We can. And some of those places were actually multi-purpose, so they've really thought them out. If they're big open area is something that when the weather turns, you can put a canopy over it, then you can use it for something else. So thinking through the seasons and the change, that you still want to attract people to use the space, you need to think about how it can adapt to that change.
And the seasonality. It snows here.
It snows here, yeah.
So you have to think about how we're going to do this in the snow.
Yeah. Our country doesn't have those seasons, but in such defined ways. But nothing's worse than having an empty space because it's not always
because it rains.
Because it rains. Yeah. Exactly.
So we certainly have a lot of rain, and they can take care of the rain. They can take care of the snow and all that. The other thing is, like the Dallas Park, this is surrounded by cultural institutions.
So there's a nice way that you can...
The Museum of Art is here. The School of Art is here. Libraries are here. All these cultural institutions are all around. They segue right into it.
And the funding model is similar to Dallas in it is privately funded. It's a partnership, I think, with the city, but it is something that is owned by the people if they're actually providing that funding as well.
Yeah, and that's something we have not done. So our parks are controlled rather than us being owners of them. Feel controlled. The state can say this, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And we don't have any control over our own space.
We don't. And one of the things that I think we can learn from here is there's actually almost a park strategy. To think about it from that big picture, what do we want to achieve? Because there'll be parks where you want to do more for kids, or parts of parks that you want to do for children and other parts for not. Rather than just have a maintenance schedule on your parks, as a local government entity often does, rather than think about
a big ball field and say you have a park when it's only a park when someone's playing ball on it. And here you can play ball, you can sit under a tree, you can read a book, you can take a walk, you can exercise, listen to a concert, and it blends right back out into the traffic.
Yeah.
It's an oasis.
It's an oasis. Because it is a public place. And if you get the most use out of it by having that multiple use value throughout the year, then that's a true, value, rather than something, as you say, it's locked for a certain period because there's no game on, and then it just sits. No point just looking at it.
Well, there's no sense that just talking about it. Let's go and see some more parks.
Sounds good.
Snuggle up. So, Catherine, what have we learned?
Wow, I think there's been some real stark contrasts to some of the places that we've seen. But one of the things that seems to be really important is that it's community owned and operated.
That's one of the things, but also community involvement before you do it.
Yes, yes.
So the project is a community project and not a government project. You're not giving it to the people being involved in the creation.
Yeah, and I understand that's definitely what happened here at Bryant Park.
Yes, and in all the parks we visited.
Definitely.
So Bryant Park is an illustration of all these things. First, sociability. There are people all over the place, socializing in every possible way. They're walking, talking, visiting, a lot of seats. None of these seats are nailed down, so people can move around, create whatever configuration they want.
They can, because sometimes you see just a small group, or you might pull a chair and just by yourself. The flexibility in those simple things like a chair can really make a difference.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is that there are activities built in here. The bocce ball, or whatever they call it, ping pong. There's all kinds of active things that will draw you into the park as well as the people.
So the second thing might be that it's that active program that you need.
Yes.
You can't just create a space and leave it.
No, it has to be programmed. It has to be programmed regularly, and that program has to change so it's inviting and attractive.
Yeah.
And Bryant Park certainly has that.
It definitely is. And I liked the way also in Dallas, the park had lots of different activities. But it was thought about in the design what activities you want to have there. I understand that the food trucks weren't an afterthought. They actually created a way that the food trucks can come up to the footpath and then the access from the park, so it was easy to get to the food. It's not hard to get to the food.
Right. So everything here is very accessible. And again, the buildings create almost like an umbrella, shade around the place. And interestingly enough, all these tall buildings, they don't cast shadows on the space.
No, it's definitely well thought through from that perspective as well.
So the buildings create the envelope. The park sits in the envelope. The park is an active space for individuals, groups, and then we have a Ferris wheel behind us.
Yeah.
So moms have something to do with the kids.
They do, and that brings it. If they're there, it's safe.
Yeah, and I'd probably say well over 50% female here.
Yeah. And that's a key performance measure, isn't it? So if the women come and the kids come, then that's actually a good way to know that you're maybe creating a great place.
Yeah, well, this is certainly one of the great places. They have the High Line here, Central Park, Prospect Park. This is a city that's great because of public spaces, not just because of its business.
And I I think one of the things that comes through is it's a partnership. You can have it community owned, engaged and operated. The city still has a role. And like we've seen here in Bryant Park, Southwest Corporate has become part of the partnership as well.
Yeah, and other corporates are part of this. So let's just review what we think the takeaway points are. Okay, we're on. Well, what are the takeaway points from all 5 of these places? What's the top takeaways?
The community.
Community involvement. All right.
Proactive programming.
Proactive programming.
I think the design that needs to think about how it's going to engage.
Who the users are.
Yes.
And it has to be designed to change.
Can't just
with
be
the
static.
moves, it can't be static. You have to have programming that's big programming and little programming.
Yep.
And you have to be able to do little silly things in the same space.
Definitely,
Okay.
yeah.
What else?
Partnerships.
Partnership with business, industry, and community.
Yeah, and probably the last thing is that it can be simple and low cost. You don't have to do something big. To get things started, you can do something as simple as placing some chairs and tables in a place, a big chair or a little chair or a bean. That's a bit more expensive, but some of the simple things can actually get the ball rolling.
Yeah, but you have to have at least one attractive feature.
Definitely.
That draws people here. A big screen, or the bean, or the theater, or something that gets the people here. In this case, we have a great library right here in the background.
It is good. Have that gravitational pull to that particular place.
That's right. So creating great places requires simple thoughts and simple interventions, and we can do it anywhere in the world, particularly in Australia.
Yep, I agree. Let's go.
Let's go.